My life is measured by routine. Every morning at 6:30, I get up, pour a cup of strong black coffee, and sit in a worn armchair by the window. The furniture is old, but it's good. They don't make it like this now. Neither do people of my generation. My name is Hector Fielding, 73 years old, and I've been a widower for 4 years. My Doris left this world after 51 years together, leaving me alone with my memories in the house we bought back in the 70s. Today I can see out the window as neighbor Alfred digs in his garden. He's 78, but he still grows the most beautiful tulips in all of Bridgeport. I set the empty cup aside and rise slowly. My knees creak almost as loudly as the floorboards of our old house. The house is the only thing I have left that's truly mine. It's small, 2 stories, with a wooden porch and creaky steps. Sabrina, my daughter, keeps telling me I should sell it. Daddy, you can't live here alone. You need care. Care. It's the same thing every time, like a learned phrase. I don't hear worry, but impatience in her voice. After breakfast, I go down to the basement. Here I have a small workshop, a workbench, tools, spare parts from old instruments. I used to be a chemical engineer at the factory, developing new methods of synthesizing polymers. Now I'm just an old man who fixes toasters and table lamps to keep my hands busy and my mind from getting lost in the labyrinths of the past. In the corner of the basement is a rack of scrapbooks. I'm drawn to them today. I take one at random with a faded blue cover. 1983. Sabrina is 10 years old, smiling from the picture, showing the absence of her 2 front teeth. Next to her is Doris. Brown hair, clear eyes, a hand on her daughter's shoulder. I stand behind, wearing the ridiculous sweater Doris knitted me for my birthday. We were once a real family. Now Sabrina comes to visit me once a month, sometimes with her husband Pierce. He works as a pharmacist for a large drugstore chain, a man with perpetually raised eyebrows, as if constantly surprised by what's going on. All their visits follow the same script: fake smiles, questions about health, and then the invariable question about money. I climb the stairs holding onto the banister. There are pictures on the wall. Doris on our wedding day, Sabrina at graduation, me at a machine at the factory, and the newest one is Jeanette with her cello. My granddaughter is 14, and she is the only person in this family around whom I feel alive. The phone rings when I'm already preparing dinner. Jeanette's name pops up on the screen. Grandpa! Her voice sounds excited. What's wrong, baby girl? We have an audition today to qualify for the competition in Vienna. I'm so nervous. Will you play for me? I ask, clasping the phone between my ear and shoulder while I chop carrots for soup. Jeanette doesn't respond with words. Instead, I hear the sounds of the cello, deep, soulful, making my old soul tremble. She's playing Bach, one of the suites. I'm not sure which one. I've never been as well versed in classical music as I'd like to be, but every note is perfect. When she finishes, I can't immediately speak. Grandpa, are you still there? Yes, my voice is hoarse. You play like an angel, Jeanette. You'll definitely go to Vienna. Now, if I qualify, she said with doubt in her voice, and if I have the money, Mom says it's very expensive. Shukr Maikornam. Don't worry about it, I answer firmly. I've been saving for you since you were born. If you're chosen, you'll go to the pageant. We say goodbye and I go back to my soup, but my appetite is gone. Jeanette's money is the only thing that matters in my life right now. I know my granddaughter's talent is real, not like the fashionable hobbies of many of her peers. She started playing at age 6 and hasn't let the instrument out of her hands since. I set up an account for her. I set aside a little bit each month. At first I thought it would be for college, but when her musical talent showed through, I decided the money would go toward her conservatory education or competitions. Sabrina knows about this money, although I have never told her the exact amount. In the evening, sit down, I point to the rocking chair next door. Would you like some tea or something stronger? Whiskey if you have it. Alfred settles into the chair. How are your bones today? Creaky as ever. And yours? The same, he chuckles. Saw your Sabrina in town yesterday. She was with that, what's his name? Pierce. Yeah, with him. They were coming out of a jewelry store. Looks like your brother-in-law bought her something shiny. I hum and take a sip from my glass. I wonder whose money this something shiny was bought with. Last time they came to ask for money to fix the roof, I say. Allegedly, it leaked during the storm. Alfred shakes his head. That's the way it is with kids. As long as they need you for something, you're a good father. As soon as you decide that your money is your money, you become a selfish old man. Maybe I am selfish, I shrug. I only feel sorry for Jeanette. It's not her fault, but she's suffering because of her parents' greed. You could always change the will, Alfred said. Leave everything directly to your granddaughter. That's what I did after my son tried to sell my house while I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I remember the story. Alfred's son, Eric, even found a buyer and managed to get a deposit while the old man was on IVs. If it hadn't been for a vigilant nurse calling Alfred to verify his address for the paperwork, the deal might have gone through. Do you think Sabrina would do something like that? I ask, though deep down I know the answer. They all can. Alfred takes a big sip of whiskey. Sona, when it comes to inheritance, children become strangers. You think you know them, raise them, and then it turns out you're looking at a complete stranger with cold shark eyes. We sit in silence, rocking in our chairs. The sun is slowly sinking below the horizon, coloring the sky orange and purple. I think about Jeanette, about her music, about the money in the account that should secure her future. Shakin. You know what the weirdest thing is? I finally say. Sabrina and Pierce are making good money. She's a lawyer at a firm. He's a pharmacist. They should have enough money, but they still ask me for it all the time. It's not about need, Alfred replies. It's about greed. Some people just can't stop. They never have enough. I think back to the last visit of my daughter and son-in-law. Sabrina was sitting across from me, nervously fiddling with the strap of her expensive watch, Pierce's anniversary present, as she'd mentioned. She told me about the problems with the roof, how much it leaked when it rained, how they were worried it might start mold, dangerous for Jeanette with her allergies. I gave them money, not because I believed it. There were too many dramatic details in their story, too much emotion for a simple roof repair. I gave them the money because I didn't want to argue, didn't want to ruin the relationship, didn't want to risk the possibility of seeing my granddaughter. You're too soft, Hector, Alfred said, as if reading my mind. You always have been. Doris kept the family in line, and you let everyone get on your back. Doris knew how to handle Sabrina, I agree. They were alike, both stubborn, both knew what they wanted. And I was always in between, trying to smooth things over. And now you're alone, and Sabrina sees you as an easy target. I'm not answering. What can you say when your old friend voices a truth you're afraid to admit? Alfred finishes his whiskey and rises. I must go. I have to get up early tomorrow. I'm going into town to see an ophthalmologist. Old age is no fun. My eyes are failing me. I'll walk you out, I say, but he waves his hand. Just sit down, you wreck. I'll walk myself. I watch him walk slowly across the lawn to his house. Two old men living out their days side by side. Only he has a deadbeat son, and I have a daughter who's not much better. In the evening, before I go to bed, I pull a picture of Doris out of my dresser drawer. She smiles from it, that special smile that has always been just for me. What would you do, Doris? I ask quietly. How would you protect Jeanette's money? The picture is silent, but I can almost hear what Doris would say. Be firm, Huck. Don't let them manipulate you. Protect our granddaughter. I fall asleep with the photo in my hands, thinking about the bank account, about Jeanette and her cello, about Vienna and the competition that could change her life. In my dream, I see Doris, young, wearing a dress the color of the sea, just like the day we first met. She holds out her hand to me and says something important, but I can't make out the words. In the morning, I wake up with a determination I haven't felt in a long time. Tomorrow, I'll go to the bank and check the account, make sure the money is there, and then I'll call Sabrina and tell her I won't give another dime for their non-existent roof repair or any other made-up problem. It's time to stop being the soft old man who gets pushed around. It's time to remember that I'm Hector Fielding, the man who ran the lab for 30 years and made young professionals tremble with one look. For Jeanette, for her future, for the memory of Doris, who would never let our daughter treat us like ATMs. The doorbell rang as I was making my second tea of the morning. The clock read 11. Too early for unannounced visits, but I had already guessed who it was. Opening the door, I saw Sabrina and Pierce standing on the threshold with strained smiles. My daughter was dressed in an elegant beige coat that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Pierce, as always, looked like a poster. Perfectly pressed shirt, fashionable haircut, polished shoes. "Daddy!" Sabrina stepped forward and hugged me. She smelled like expensive perfume. "How are you?" We were so worried. "Worried about what?" I asked, stepping back to let them pass. "There's nothing wrong with me." You didn't answer your phone last night." Sabrina walked into the living room and immediately noticed the mess on the table. "Dad, you need to keep a better eye on the house. It's so messy in here." I didn't bother saying that I didn't answer the phone simply because I didn't want to talk. Instead, I shrugged and headed for the kitchen. "Would you like some tea or coffee?" "Coffee would be great," Pierce said, sitting down in my favorite chair. "No sugar, please." While I fiddled with the coffee maker, Sabrina wandered around the living room, looking at pictures. I heard her say something quietly to Pierce. When I returned with the tray, they were sitting side by side on the couch with serious faces. Bad sign. Usually they start with small talk, asking about health, talking about work. If they go straight to business, it means it's urgent, or they need something substantial. So I put the tray on the table and sat down across from him. "To what do I owe this early visit?" Sabrina glanced at her husband, then took a deep breath. "Dad, we're having problems with the house. Serious problems." I sipped my tea, waiting for her to continue. Sabrina straightened up like she always did when she was preparing to give a pre-rehearsed speech. "After the last storm, our roof started leaking. Not much at first, we didn't even pay much attention to it. But yesterday, when it rained again, the water was pouring down in streams. We called a professional," Pierce said. "He said it needed urgent repairs. Apparently, they used bad materials when they built the house. The roof was rotten from the inside out." I stared at them, trying to find signs of lying. Sabrina was rubbing the sleeve of her coat, a nervous gesture from when she was a kid, when she lied about a broken vase or a bad grade. Pierce was too calm, too sure. "How much is this emergency repair going to cost?" I asked bluntly. 15,000, Sabrina answered without blinking an eye. "Maybe more if there's more damage." 15,000. That's a lot of money. If there's mold, she'll have to move. You don't want your granddaughter living in a hotel, do you? That's it. The trump card. Jeanette. They knew I couldn't say no when it came to my granddaughter's welfare. "Show me the estimate," I said. "I want to see what your specialist is proposing." Sabrina looked at Pierce again. "We didn't bring her with us," she said. "It all happened so fast. We had the specialist last night. It was late. We decided right away to go to your place in the morning." "I can go and see for myself," I suggested. "It's been a long time since I've been to your place." "No," Sabrina answered too quickly. "I mean, not today. It's such a mess. We stacked all the furniture in the center of the rooms covered with tape, and the workmen should be arriving any moment." I leaned back in my chair. He's lying. And it's as inept as when I was a kid. There's no leak, and there will be no workers. "Well," I said slowly, 15,000 is a lot of money. I don't have that kind of cash." "You have savings, Dad," Sabrina said softly. "We know you've been saving, and we'll get that money back to you as soon as we get the payout from the insurance company." "Those savings are for Jeanette," I replied, watching for a reaction. "For her education." "Of course," Pierce agreed quickly. "We understand. But Jeanette is only 14. College is still a few years away. We'll have time to pay the money back." "Not just for college," I clarified. "Music school. For competitions. If she gets selected for the competition in Vienna, it'll be this year." Sabrina tensed, and I could see her expression change. "A competition in Vienna? She told you?" "Yes, yesterday. She's very excited. She says it could open the door to the best conservatories in the world." "Daddy," Sabrina's moving forward, "it's just a child's dream. You don't really think she'll become a professional cellist, do you?" "It's a hobby, nothing more." I felt anger boiling up inside. Jeanette had been playing since she was 6, several hours every day. Her teacher said she had an exceptional talent, and Sabrina calls it a hobby? I stood up and went into my office to get my checkbook. My hands trembled slightly as I wrote the check. Not from old age, from anger. I knew I was being cheated. I knew there would be no repairs. But I wrote the check because I was afraid I'd lose the last link between me and Jeanette. By the time I got back, Sabrina and Pierce were standing there, ready to leave. "We really appreciate it, Daddy," Sabrina said, slipping the check into her purse. "You helped us out. What if the account I had so carefully funded was already empty?" I called Jeanette around 2 when I knew she'd be home from school. "Grandpa," her voice immediately lifted my spirits. "You won't believe it. I've been chosen for the competition in Vienna. Professor Myers said I was the best at the audition." "That's wonderful, little one." I was overjoyed. "I knew they couldn't resist your talent. Now I have—" "Your mom is worried about the practical side," I said gently. "Don't worry about the money. I promise to help, and I'll keep my promise." "You will?" Her voice brightened instantly. "Oh, grandfather, thank you. I'll study so hard. I won't let you down." "I know you won't, dear. When's the competition?" "June. That's less than 2 months away. I have so much to prepare. Also, Professor Myers says it would be a good idea to find a new bow. My old one is no longer suitable for this level." "A new bow," I repeated. "All right. We'll look into it. Maybe I can come next week and we can go to the store together." After talking to Jeanette, I felt a surge of determination. I should check the account immediately. I changed my clothes, grabbed my cane, my knees were bothering me today, and left the house. The bank was 10 blocks away. Usually I got there in 20 minutes, but today it took almost 40. Damn arthritis, they knew me at the bank. Mrs. Phelps, the older woman behind the counter, smiled. "Mr. Fielding, what a pleasant surprise. What can I do for you today?" "Hello, Helen. I'd like to check the status of an account, an education account in my granddaughter's name." "Of course," she nodded. "Why don't you have a seat? I'll have it all set up." I settled into the chair and waited. A few minutes later, Helen came up with a folder. "Mr. Fielding, you will recall that you recently changed the terms of this account." "Changed the terms?" "No, I didn't change anything." She opened the folder and pointed to a document. "Right here. 3 weeks ago, you signed an order allowing joint access for you and Mrs. Sabrina Kent." I felt the blood rush from my face. I'd never signed anything like that. "This is a mistake," I said. "Show me the document, please." Helen held out the paper. It had my signature on it, or something similar. "I didn't sign this," I said firmly. "It's a forgery." Helen looked worried. "But it's notarized. There's a seal." I examined the document. The seal is real. The notary's signature is real too. "I want to see the account statement for the last 3 months." Helen hesitated. "I'm afraid we'll need the permission of the other owner, Mrs. Kent. Under the new terms and conditions, any transactions require the consent of both." I felt a growing rage. This account was opened by me. The money is mine. I want to know how much is left in it. Helen looked embarrassed and left to consult with the manager. She soon returned with a young man in a smart suit. "Mr. Fielding, I'm Brandon Kowalski, the branch manager." After a discussion in his office, I learned the terrible truth. $28,000 had been withdrawn from the account in the last 3 weeks. Sabrina had taken almost half of the money set aside for Jeanette. I couldn't block the account without my daughter's consent. I couldn't change the terms. The bank was acting on documents that were technically correct. On the way home, I thought about Sabrina, about the little girl with pigtails who looked at me with adoration, about the teenager who argued about everything. When had she turned into someone capable of stealing from her own daughter? At home, I called Alfred and told him everything. "Go to the police," he said. "Immediately. It's fraud." "She's my daughter, Alf. She's a thief, Huck. And she didn't steal from you. She stole from her daughter." I knew he was right, but the thought of reporting Sabrina was painful. "I'll talk to her first. Give her a chance to make things right." I called my daughter that evening, not giving away that I knew about the forgery and theft. Sabrina continued to lie about the roof repairs and expressed doubts about spending on Jeanette's pageant. I had to act quickly before the last dime disappeared. But how? The bank wouldn't block the account without a court order. Sabrina wouldn't return the money voluntarily. There was only hope for a good lawyer to help protect the remaining funds. With a heavy heart, I went to bed thinking about my granddaughter and her dreams, which were in danger because of her parents' greed. A week passed after Sabrina and Pierce's visit. A week filled with anxious thoughts and sleepless nights. I tried to pull myself together and decide what to do next. I called lawyers, but the conversations didn't work out. On Thursday, Alfred called. "Hector, remember you promised to celebrate my birthday with me?" "Your birthday is in October, Alf," I replied. "It's April." "Never mind, think of it as a premature celebration. I've booked a table at the Côte d'Azur for 8 o'clock. My treat. The Azur was the most expensive restaurant in downtown Bridgeport. I'd been there twice, for Doris's golden wedding and Sabrina's graduation, a place for special occasions, with white tablecloths and prices that took my breath away. "Why so generous?" I asked. "I won the lottery," Alfred chuckled. $100. Enough for dinner for two old grouches. I wanted to say no. I didn't feel like going anywhere, much less to such a fancy place. But Alfred insisted, and finally I agreed. I arrived at the restaurant by cab. A young doorman in an austere suit opened the door for me and nodded respectfully. I felt uncomfortable in my old jacket, bought while Doris was still alive. Inside, the Azur looked even more luxurious than I remembered. Soft light from crystal chandeliers, live music, a pianist playing something classical, waiters in white shirts gliding between tables. "Good evening," the maitre d' addressed me. "What can I do for you?" "I'm meeting Mr. Patterson. I have an 8 o'clock reservation." The maitre d' checked his book. "Yes, Mr. Patterson. Your date hasn't arrived yet, but I can show you to your table." He led me across the room to a small table in the corner. On the way, I looked at the other patrons. Well-groomed couples, business people, companies celebrating to the clinking of glasses. And then I saw them. Sabrina and Pierce were sitting at a table by the window. My daughter was wearing a dark blue dress I hadn't seen before, with a string of pearls around her neck. Pierce in a suit that seemed more expensive than mine. In front of them were glasses of wine, plates of fine food, a basket of bread. I froze in place. The maitre d' turned around, noticing I wasn't following him. "Sir, is something wrong?" I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on my daughter and son-in-law's table. They were laughing, talking, not noticing me. Sabrina was saying something with a lively face. Pierce was nodding. Then he raised his glass in a toast, and they laughed again. "Sir?" Antum, the maitre d' touched my elbow. "Your table is ready." "Just a moment." I finally found my voice. "I see someone I know. I'll come say hello." I headed towards Sabrina and Pierce's table. My legs felt like they were moving on their own. The only thing I could think of was that they'd asked me for money to fix the roof only a week ago, talking about financial difficulties, and now they're sitting in the most expensive restaurant in town. "Oh wait, I hope the dinner was worth the money," I said, stopping at their table. Sabrina flinched and looked up. Her face changed instantly. The smile was gone. Her eyes widened with shock, her cheeks pale. Pierce choked on his wine and coughed. "Daddy!" Sabrina tried to pull herself together. "What a surprise! What are you doing here?" "I have a meeting with Alfred," I answered, keeping my eyes on the bottle of wine. "And you, I see, have decided to celebrate the successful roof repair?" Pierce finally got over his cough. "Hector, didn't expect to see you here. Why don't you join us?" That was the last thing I expected. "Good idea," I said, pulling up a free chair. "I'll wait here for Alfred." I sat down, watching them exchange quick glances. There were plates of uneaten food on the table, something with lobster at Sabrina's, duck at Pierce's, a basket of bread, butter in a silver oiler, and an open clipboard between them. "Are you here on business?" I asked, nodding at the clipboard. Sabrina hastily closed it. "Just discussing something. Nothing important. I'll leave you to it." I made a gesture as if I were going to get up. "Perhaps I should wait for Alfred at our table." "No, no," Pierce held me back. "We're already done here." Sabrina gave me a strained smile. "Dad, can we order you something?" I picked up the menu lying on the edge of the table. The prices made me inwardly shudder. "How's the roof repair coming?" I asked, not looking up from the menu. Silence again. Then Pierce cleared his throat. "It's good, very good. The workers, they're very professional." "Excellent," I set the menu aside. And as I was about to reply when I noticed a waiter leading Alfred across the room. My friend saw me and waved, then, noticing who I was sitting with, slowed down. "Alfred!" I raised my hand. "We're here." Alfred approached the table, leaning on his cane. "Hector!" He nodded at me, then turned to Sabrina and Pierce. What a surprise. We decided to have dinner together. Sabrina and Pierce were clearly unhappy, but they couldn't say no outright. There was an awkward silence at the table as the waiter brought the cutlery. Alfred studied the menu with amazement. My God, when did steak start costing as much as my first car? Pierce smiled strainedly. The food here is great, worth the money. Yes, I can see you're enjoying yourself. Alfred nodded at their plates. Lobster, duck, and the wine isn't cheap either, I suppose. Sabrina gave him a cold glance. It's our anniversary, 10 years since we got engaged. I didn't remember her ever mentioning that date before. After ordering, Alfred asked, what were you two up to before we interrupted your romantic evening? Sabrina was too quick to hide the clipboard in her bag. Nothing in particular, just chatting. That's how, Alfred smiled. I thought you two were discussing something very intensely. Pierce sipped his wine. We were looking at vacation options. We're thinking of going to Europe this summer. I felt my insides tighten. Europe? What about Jeanette's pageant? You know it's in Vienna in June. Oh yes, Pierce looked embarrassed. We haven't made up our minds yet. Very expensive ideas, said Alfred. Europe isn't cheap these days. Sabrina gave him a cold look. We haven't had a vacation in a long time, and we both work hard. So does your daughter, I said. However, she works hard on her music. That's different, Papa. Sabrina set her glass down with excessive force. Jeanette is still a child. She has her whole life ahead of her. To fulfill her dreams, I added, if they let her. The waiter brought wine and opened a new bottle. Cheers, Pierce said, raising his glass. And to honesty, I added. Sabrina looked me straight in the eye. What do you mean, Dad? I was at the bank last week, I said. I checked Jeanette's account. The effect was immediate. Sabrina's face paled. Her eyes widened. So? She asked, trying to remain calm. You know what? $28,000 is gone. The money I'd been saving for Jeanette's future, for her education, for pageants, for opportunities you don't think are important. Pierce began. Hector, this is not what you... Shut up, I haven't finished. Someone forged my signature. Someone defrauded a notary public. Someone accessed the account and took my granddaughter's money. People at the next table started to turn around. I forced myself to keep my voice down. And now I see you here in an expensive restaurant with $100 worth of wine, planning a vacation in Europe. After asking for money to fix the roof a week ago, Sabrina straightened up. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You think you're entitled to my money, the money I've been saving for your daughter. You spend it on restaurants and vacations, while Jeanette goes without the opportunities she dreams of. Pierce put his hand on his wife's shoulder. Let's not make a scene. There's nothing to discuss, I cut him off. You stole your daughter's money. You cheated me. What did the $28,000 go to? Silence, then I continued. You must return that money, every last dime, or I'll go to the police. You won't do that, Sabrina finally spoke. I'm your daughter. And Jeanette is your daughter, but that didn't stop you from stealing her future. Finally, Sabrina took a deep breath. Daddy, this money is for the good of the family. Jeanette is part of the family, too. What good? A vacation in Europe? Dinners at expensive restaurants? For our lives. Sabrina suddenly burst into flames. To live a decent life. We have mortgages, insurance, bills. Pierce lost some of his clients. We were in financial trouble. And you decided to solve them at the expense of your own daughter? Stealing money from a 14-year-old girl? It's not stealing, Sabrina said stubbornly. That money is still an inheritance. Only after I die, and only if I didn't change my will, which I intend to do. You can't. It's not fair. Dishonest? You're talking about fair? After all you've done? The waiter brought our dishes. I noticed Sabrina's hands were trembling. I want the money back. All $28,000, plus $3,000 for roof repairs. Pierce looked guilty. Hector, we can't give it back now. We've already spent most of it. On what? What have... The broker is sure. Broker, I repeated. The one who gets a commission on every trade? Sabrina put down her fork. You're always like this, Dad. You think you know best, that we don't understand anything. I think you're selfish adults willing to sacrifice your child's future for short-term gain. Jeanette will be fine. This obsession with music is just a phase. She'll outgrow it. That's it. Sabrina never believed in her daughter's talent. You're saying that about your daughter, about a girl who's considered a prodigy by her teachers. The world of music is cruel, Sabrina said. There's a 1 in a million chance she'll succeed. For her happiness, I replied. For the sake of her doing what she loves. Talent, Sabrina snorted. All parents think their kids are talented. Not just parents, professionals. People who know better than we do. The decision's made. The money has been invested. Jeanette's not going to the pageant. No, I straightened up. I will not let my granddaughter's future be stolen. I will tell Jeanette the truth about where the money for her education went. You wouldn't dare. It would ruin our relationship with our daughter. You've already done it yourself. I'll just rip the mask off. Pierce intervened. Shouldn't we find a compromise? What kind of compromise? You'll give the money back? All the money? Immediately? We can't, Pierce admitted. It's an investment, but we can pay it back gradually. I need to know what you were discussing when we came in, I demanded. What's on the tablet? Sabrina reluctantly pulled out the tablet, turned it on, and turned the screen toward me. Sunny Hills, the headline read. Luxury full-care nursing home. What's that? I asked, already guessing. Dad, we're worried about you. You live alone in a big house. You need care, supervision. And you need my house to sell, to get the money, to spend it on yourself, like Jeanette's money. It's not like that. We're really worried. You've convinced yourself you're doing the right thing, that you're entitled to my money, my house, my daughter's future. You justify your greed by caring about me. Sabrina jumped up, knocking over the glass. The wine spilled over the tablecloth. You're unfair. You always have been. These years you've saved money, lived modestly, for what? To lay dead weight on the table? While we work ourselves to exhaustion, that money could help the whole family. People looked at us frankly. The pianist stopped playing. Sit down, I said quietly. You're making a scene. I don't care. Sabrina had tears in her eyes. You're always so right. In reality, you're just a cheapskate who can't accept that his time has passed. I apologize for my mistake. You're absolutely right. I've misdirected the narrative. I will continue from the moment of the scandal in the restaurant and logically conclude that scene before moving on to the aftermath. Sabrina's words hung in the air. The entire restaurant seemed to freeze, looking at our scene. I slowly rose from my seat. I don't think we have anything more to talk about, I said in a flat voice. Alfred, do you mind if we leave? My friend stood up too, leaning on his cane. Of course not. Suddenly, all appetite was gone. Pierce sat motionless, avoiding my eyes. Sabrina, still standing, was breathing heavily, her face flushed with emotion. You're always like this, Daddy, she said quieter, but with no less anger. Her running away from the real conversation. At least Mom could argue with you. I never got that chance. I looked at the daughter I'd raised for over 40 years, at the woman who was now a complete stranger to me. This isn't a conversation, Sabrina. This is a play, and I have no part in it. Are you leaving? Her voice became haughty. That's fine. Go. But know this, we're not giving you your money back. Not a dime. It's already spent, invested, gone. So run home, sit there alone, and enjoy your unnecessary pride. I headed for the exit, Alfred following me. Already at the door, I turned around. Don't worry, I will secure Jeanette's future, in spite of you, if necessary. We left, leaving Sabrina standing there with her mouth hanging open. The outside air seemed unexpectedly sweet after the stifling atmosphere of the restaurant. Alfred and I walked down the street in silence for a few minutes. I'm sorry for ruining your evening, I said at last. It wasn't your fault, he said. But it's all cleared up now, hasn't it? Yes, it did. I knew for a fact that my daughter wouldn't stop until she took everything I had, and my granddaughter would lose her opportunities if I didn't intervene. Alfred stopped the cab and we drove home. What are you going to do? He asked. What I should have done from the beginning. Protect Jeanette and myself. I spent the next morning on the phone with lawyers. I finally found one who seemed reliable, Michael Drayton, a family law specialist with 30 years of experience. He set up an appointment for me the next day. I spent the entire day in the house going through old photo albums. Sabrina at 3 on the carousel. At 7 with a loose tooth, smiling proudly at the camera. At 10, sitting at the piano, serious, focused. At 16, the first date, in a smart dress. When did it all go wrong? When did my little girl turn into this greedy, selfish woman? That evening, the phone rang. The number was unrecognizable. Hector Fielding, I answered. Grandfather? Jeanette's voice sounded muffled, as if she were speaking in a whisper. My heart warmed immediately. Jeanette, how are you, little girl? I'm fine. She paused. Grandpa, what's wrong? Did Mom and Dad fight with you? I sighed. Of course they wouldn't keep the scandal a secret from her. Just a question of what version they told her. We had a disagreement, yes. Because of me? There was concern in her voice. Because of the contest? Partly, I admitted. Your mom thinks music is just a hobby for you. I know it's so much more than that. She said you changed your mind and don't want to spend money on my trip, Jeanette said quietly. That's it, putting all the blame on me. That's not true, baby. I'm always ready to support your music. But there are some complications with the money I've been saving for you. What kind of complications? I didn't want to tell her the truth over the phone. I didn't want her to find out about my parents' betrayal that way. Nothing irreparable. I'm working on it. Jeanette, could we meet? Talk in person? She was quiet. I don't know. My mom said I shouldn't see you yet, that you're upset and you might talk too much. And you're going to obey? Jeanette laughed softly. No. Where and when? We agreed to meet in 2 days at Bridgeport Central Park. Jeanette said she could stop by after her tutoring session, ostensibly on her way to see a friend. We'd have about an hour. Be careful, I said before saying goodbye. And Jeanette, yes, Grandpa. I love you. Whatever happens, remember that. I love you too, she said. See you later. After the call, I sat in the dark living room, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Anger at Sabrina and Pierce for lying to me. Sadness. No one but the trustees of the trust will be able to manage the funds. Not even the parents? Especially parents, if you so choose. We discussed the details. I decided that the trustees would be myself, Alfred, and a third person, Doris's younger sister, Evelyn, who had always been close to Jeanette and had taught music herself at college. What about the will? I asked. We'll change that too, Drayton replied. But the trust is more important. It will take effect immediately, not after your death. I signed the necessary documents and left with the feeling that I was doing something right. The day I met Jeanette was clear and warm. I arrived at the park early and sat on a bench near the fountain, our agreed-upon spot. My heart was pounding with excitement and a little fear. What if Sabrina found out? What if Jeanette couldn't make it? But exactly at the appointed time, I saw her, tall for her age, with her brown hair in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a plaid shirt, with a backpack over her shoulders. Jeanette was looking around, looking for me. I waved and her face lit up with a smile. Grandpa! She ran up and hugged me tightly. My baby. I held her close to me, smelling the familiar scent of shampoo. I missed her. We sat down on the bench. Jeanette looked a little tired with shadows under her eyes. Didn't you sleep well? I asked. Yes. She lowered her eyes. It's tense. Mom and Dad are fighting all the time, and I'm not allowed to talk to you. Because I'm a bad grandpa who won't pay for your trip. Jeanette nodded. Mom said you decided to spend that money on fixing up your house. I grinned bitterly. Sabrina is resourceful in her lies. Jeanette, I have to tell you the truth, but it's not an easy one, and it may be painful for you to hear. She straightened up and looked me in the eye. I am not a child, grandfather. I want to know the truth. I took a deep breath and began to tell her about how I was saving money for her education, about noticing the oddities with the account, about the forged signature, about the missing $28,000, about the night at the restaurant when it all came out. Jeanette listened silently, her face gradually paling. Are you telling me that, Mom and Dad stole my money? They say they invested it in stocks, that they're going to pay it back with interest. But without your permission, her voice trembled. They forged your signature. I nodded. I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't want you to find out like this. To my surprise, Jeanette didn't cry. Instead, her face took on a determined expression, too mature for a 14-year-old girl. I knew something was wrong, she said quietly. They never really supported my music. They always said it was just a hobby, that I should think about a real career. She turned to me. And now they're the reason I can't go to the contest. That's where you're wrong, I said, smiling slightly. Chio, I've met with a lawyer. We're setting up a special fund for you. The money in it will be earmarked only for your education, music, competitions. No one will be able to use it for anything else. Jeanette's eyes widened. Really? And I can go to Vienna? Of course, I promised, and I'll keep my promise. She hugged me tightly again. Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you. We sat in silence for a while. Then Jeanette asked, What's going to happen now with Mom and Dad? With you? I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know. We probably won't be in touch for a while. But I'll always be there for you. Always. They'll forbid me from seeing you. They might, but you're not a little girl anymore. In a few years, you'll be able to decide for yourself. But until then, I smiled. Until then, we'll have secret meetings. Like today. Jeanette wondered, Grandpa, what if I lived with you? My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? I could move in with you, at least until the competition. I could study without hearing them fight all the time. It was tempting, having Jeanette around, helping her prepare, seeing her every day. But I knew it was impossible. I'm afraid your parents won't agree, little girl. They're your legal guardians. But what if I told the court I wanted to live with you? Shouldn't I be heard? At 14, the court will take your opinion into account, but it will decide based on your best interests. And two working parents against one elderly person? I shook my head. I don't think we have a chance. Jeanette sighed frustratedly. It's not fair. Life is often unfair, but that doesn't mean we should give up. I took her hand. Listen to me. We're going to send out a bid for the contest soon. We'll pay all the expenses. We'll buy you a new bow. If your parents try to stop you, we have a lawyer. And most importantly, you have talent, Jeanette, a real talent, and no one can take it away. They can stop me from practicing, she said quietly. They could, I agreed, but then we'll find another way. Maybe your teacher will agree to extra lessons at school, or we can organize lessons at a friend's house. There's always a way. The main thing is not to give up. Jeanette nodded, her eyes lit up with determination. I won't give up, Grandpa. I promise. We talked for another half hour about music, about the contest, about her plans. Jeanette showed me a video of her last performance at school. She played Bach with such feeling that it sent shivers down my spine. When it was time to say goodbye, I hugged her even tighter than usual. Be strong, little girl. And remember, the truth is on our side. I'll call you, she said. I'll find a way. I watched her walk away, her back straight, her gait confident. Not a child, but not yet an adult. A young girl caught between two fires in a family war. When I returned home, I found an envelope on my doorstep. Inside was a letter from Sabrina, printed on her law firm's letterhead. Father, it read, in light of recent events, I feel it necessary to clarify the situation. The funds in question have been used for the benefit of the family, including Jeanette. Pierce and I, as her parents, have the right to make decisions about her future. Your interference is unwelcome and harmful. If you choose to continue to insist, we will be forced to limit your contact with Jeanette. Furthermore, we may initiate proceedings to declare you incompetent, given your age and medical condition. I hope you will be sensible and not make things worse. Sincerely, Sabrina Kent. I reread the letter twice, not believing my eyes. Threats. My own daughter had threatened me, used her legal knowledge to intimidate. I called my lawyer and read him the letter. They're empty threats, Mr. Fielding, Drayton said confidently. To declare you incompetent, you'd have to have strong medical grounds, a psychiatric evaluation, evidence of dementia, or other conditions affecting cognitive ability. They don't have any of that. But they can prevent me from seeing my granddaughter. Unfortunately, yes. As parents, they have that right. But they can't stop you from setting up a trust or changing your will. After the conversation, I sat in my chair for a long time, staring out the window at the setting sun. In 1 month, my life had been turned upside down. I'd lost my daughter, or rather, I'd seen her true colors. I almost lost the money I had set aside for my granddaughter. And now I was in danger of losing the chance to communicate with Jeanette. But I wasn't going to give up. I'm going to set up this trust. I'll change the will. I'm going to find a way to keep in touch with my granddaughter because she's the only thing that really matters. Going up to my office, I pulled out an old jewelry box where I kept my most valuable documents. Among them was a will made while Doris was still alive, a will that left all of our possessions to Sabrina. It was time for a change. Michael Drayton worked quickly and efficiently. A week after our meeting, all the paperwork for Jeanette's trust fund was ready. We met in his office, a spacious room overlooking downtown Bridgeport. On the walls hung diplomas and certificates attesting to his qualifications. "Everything's ready, Mr. Fielding," Drayton said, sliding a file folder toward me. "As we discussed, this is an irrevocable educational trust. You'll be the primary trustee, Mr. Patterson and Mrs. Burrows the secondary trustees. The funds can only be used for educational purposes: tuition, musical instruments, competitions, master classes." I looked over the paperwork. Everything looked correct. Jeanette's name, the amount of the down payment, the terms of the funds. "What if her parents tried to challenge it?" I asked. "It would be difficult for them to do that," the lawyer replied. "An irrevocable trust, as the name implies, cannot be revoked or changed once created. Even you yourself can't do that, which ensures that the funds are safe for your granddaughter." I nodded and signed the documents. We then discussed changing the will. I decided to leave Sabrina a minimal share, enough so that she could not contest the will on the grounds that she had been completely disinherited. The bulk of the estate went to Jeanette, but was only available to her when she reached the age of 21. "So even if something happens to you, your granddaughter will be provided for," Drayton concluded. I left his office with a sense of accomplishment. For the first time in a long time, I slept soundly that night. Of course, the peace of mind couldn't last. The next day, as I was walking back from the store, the phone rang. Sabrina's number. "What did you do?" she asked without greeting as soon as I answered. "Good afternoon to you too, daughter," I said calmly. "What are you talking about?" "Don't pretend." Her voice shook with anger. "We got a call from the bank. They said you had set up some kind of trust for Jeanette, without our knowledge or consent." "Yes." I saw no point in denying it. "I set up an educational trust for my granddaughter to ensure that the money would go towards her education and musical career." "You had no right," Sabrina screamed. "We are her parents. We decide what's best for her." "How did you decide when you stole the money from her account?" I asked. "Or when you decided that music was just a hobby and not her calling?" Sabrina was silent for a moment, then continued quietly, but with no less fury. "You're going to regret this, Father. We'll sue. We'll prove that you're incompetent, that you've been deceived, that you're not aware of your actions." "Try it," I remained calm. "I have a lawyer. I have all the medical certificates that prove I'm sane. I have witnesses who will attest to my sanity and good judgment. And what do you have, Sabrina? Forged signatures? Stolen money? You don't dare take this to the public. Why not? I have nothing to be ashamed of. But you have something to be ashamed of. Forging documents is a felony." "You won't do it," she said with uncertainty in her voice. "You won't go to the police against your own daughter." "If I have to choose between protecting Jeanette and protecting you," I said, "I'll choose Jeanette. She's the innocent victim in this situation. You made your own choice." "Jeanette is not going anywhere." Sabrina suddenly changed the subject. "Not to any pageant. We're her parents, and we won't give our consent. And without parental consent, a minor can't go anywhere, especially abroad." That's it. I was expecting this, but I still felt my heart sink. "Are you ready to deprive your child of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity just to mess with me?" I asked quietly. "I'm willing to protect my family from your interference." Sabrina cut me off. "Always, by any means necessary." "Family or money?" I asked. "I can, at least be honest with yourself, Sabrina." She hung up the phone. I sank slowly into the chair, feeling my heart pounding, my heart pounding. The pain in my chest got worse. I took deep breaths, trying to calm down, but the heaviness wouldn't go away. I had to take nitroglycerin, a small tablet under my tongue, as the doctor had advised. Gradually the pain receded, but the weakness remained. The stress of the last few weeks was beginning to take its toll on my health. I couldn't sleep well, my appetite was gone, and now my heart was starting to race. But I couldn't afford to be sick. Not now, when Jeanette needed my protection. The next days passed in tense anticipation. I waited for more calls from Sabrina, a subpoena, anything, but nothing happened. The silence was almost frightening. On Wednesday, 4 days after talking to Sabrina, the doorbell rang. On the doorstep stood Mabel Jenkins, an old friend of Doris's with whom we'd kept in touch all these years after her wife's death. "Hector!" she exclaimed, hugging me. "You look awful, darling." Mabel had always been straightforward, a tall, statuesque woman in her 70s with short gray hair and bright blue eyes. She taught literature at the local college until she retired 5 years ago. "Hello to you too, Mabel," I smiled as I let her in. "To what do I owe this visit?" "Alfred called me," she said, walking into the living room. "Said you were going through a difficult time and might need some companionship." "Alfred is overprotective," I sighed, following her. "Would you like some tea?" "Definitely. And while you're making it, I'll have a look around." Doris would roll over in her grave if she saw this mess. She was right. The house did look neglected. Dust on the shelves, unwashed dishes in the sink, unopened newspapers on the table. I'd stopped keeping order when it all started. When I came back with the tea, Mabel had already dusted the shelves and put the newspapers in a neat stack. "You didn't have to," I said, setting the tray down. "You did," she cut me off. "Doris wouldn't like you living in such chaos." We sat down and Mabel looked at me carefully. "Now tell me, what's going on?" I wasn't going to tell her anything, but under that intense stare, it all came out on its own. About Jeanette's account, the forgery, the confrontation at the restaurant, about the trust in Sabrina's threats. Mabel listened without interrupting. When I finished, she shook her head. "Who would have thought it? Little Sabrina. Always seemed such a bright child." She's changed," I said. "Or maybe I just hadn't seen the real her while Doris was alive." "Maybe," Mabel said thoughtfully. "Doris always knew how to keep her family in line. She was a strong woman." "Stronger than I ever was," I admitted. "But you're showing strength now," Mabel said. "Protecting your granddaughter, fighting for her future." I shrugged. "What's the use? Sabrina wouldn't let her into the pageant anyway. Jeanette won't go anywhere without parental permission," Mabel wondered. "What if she could find a way to get that permission? Maybe through the courts." "On what grounds?" I asked bitterly. "Parents have the right to decide where their minor children go. No court would interfere in such matters without a good reason." Mabel sipped her tea. "But I do know that war rarely leads to good results, especially a family war." She was right, of course, but I didn't see a path to peace, not after all that's happened. "I'm afraid for Jeanette," I said quietly. "What if they really make her give up music? What if they ruin her talent?" "She's 14, Mabel reminded me. "In a few years, she'll be able to make her own decisions. In the meantime, maybe there are ways to support her without confronting her parents." "Like what?" "Like through her music teacher, or through the school program." "Does she have a scholarship?" "Maybe she could practice through the school program if her performances bring prestige to the school," I wondered. It was an interesting thought, getting around Sabrina's ban without directly violating it. "Perhaps," I admitted. "But it doesn't solve the problem of the competition." It was less than a month away. Mabel frowned. "Yes, it's more difficult, but maybe we should try to talk to Pierce separately from Sabrina. He seemed like a more reasonable person to me." "I doubt he'd go against his wife. Not necessarily against her. Maybe he could influence her, help her see that she's hurting her child." I remembered Pierce's face at the restaurant, his embarrassment when the truth came out. Maybe he still had a conscience. "I'll think about it," I said. Mabel nodded, then looked at me carefully. "And now about you. How is your health?" I wanted to lie, to say I was fine, but she always saw right through me, like Doris. "I've been better," I admitted. "My heart's a little jumpy. Doctor says it's stress. Are you on medication?" "Yes, but not always regularly." I forget sometimes. Mabel pressed her lips together. Hector Fielding, you're an impossible man. How are you going to help your granddaughter if you go down with a heart attack? She was right, of course. But for the last month, health's been the last thing on my mind. I'll pay more attention, I promised. Not just more careful, Mabel said sternly. I'll come in every day and make sure you take all your pills, and eating right, and getting enough sleep. You don't have to, I objected. You have a life. I barely have a life, she grinned. Book club once a week and gardening. I miss socializing, to be honest. So I'll come not only for you, but also for me. I knew it was useless to argue. When Mabel made up her mind about something, it was impossible to change her mind. She and Doris were alike in that way. All right, I gave in. But not every day. Maybe 3 times a week? Okay, she nodded. And I'll cook for you. Judging by your refrigerator, you live on canned goods and bread. We talked for a long time. About Doris, about old times, about how Bridgeport had changed over the years. Mabel talked about her garden, about the new varieties of roses she was growing. Gradually, the heaviness that had been pressing in her chest for the last few days began to let go. When Mabel left, promising to return the day after tomorrow with groceries and new books, I felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in a long time. Maybe she was right. Maybe there is a way to resolve this situation without going to the point of a complete breakup with my daughter. The next morning, I called Pierce's work number. Luckily, he answered himself and not his secretary. Hector? There was surprise in his voice. Is something wrong? Hon, we need to talk, I said. In person, without Sabrina. There was a long pause. I don't know if that's a good idea, he said finally. After everything that's happened. This is about Jeanette's future, I interrupted him. Just that. Not the money, not the house, not you and Sabrina. It's about Jeanette and her music. Another pause. All right, Pierce said at last. But not in public. I don't want a repeat of the restaurant scene. We agreed to meet in the park, on the same bench where I had met Jeanette, at 2:01 in the afternoon during Pierce's lunch hour. I spent the whole day thinking about it, preparing for this conversation. What would I say? How do I convince him? What would I offer to get him to agree to help Jeanette go to the pageant? By the appointed time, I was in the park. Pierce was 10 minutes late. He approached hurriedly, looking around as if afraid of being seen. Hector, he nodded, taking a seat beside him. I don't have much time. What did you want to talk about? About the competition in Vienna, I said bluntly. Jeanette must go. It's important for her future. Pierce sighed. Sabrina has already decided. She won't go. But why? I asked. What's wrong with your daughter entering an international competition? What's wrong with her developing her talent? That's not the point. Pierce looked tired. It's about principle. Sabrina thinks you're trying to interfere with our upbringing, to get Jeanette on your side. That's not true, I objected. I just want my granddaughter to have the opportunities she deserves. I know, Pierce said quietly. And to be honest, I agree with you. Jeanette is really talented. Her teachers say she has a rare gift. That was a surprise. I thought Pierce was totally on Sabrina's side. Then why don't you convince your wife to change her mind? Pierce grinned bitterly. You know your daughter? Once she's made up her mind about something, it's almost impossible to change her mind. And now she's particularly adamant. Because of the trust? I guessed. He nodded. She took it as a personal insult, as proof that you don't trust her. Can I trust her? After everything that's happened? Pierce lowered his eyes. We did take that money, and yes, it was wrong. But it wasn't Sabrina who forged the signature. I did. I stared at him stunned. You? Yeah, he looked up. I had debts, gambling debts. I'd been hiding them from Sabrina for a long time, but the creditors had started threatening. I needed money and fast. So you decided to steal it from your own daughter? I was going to give it back, he objected vehemently. I did invest it, as we discussed, in a project that was going to make a quick profit. And what happened? The project failed. Pierce looked utterly devastated. I lost everything, and now I don't know how to get the money back. Sabrina's furious. She only agreed to take some of the blame to save her family. Did she know about the forgery? No. Pierce shook his head. She only found out after the whole thing was exposed. I told her you gave verbal consent to use the account, that it was a misunderstanding, not a theft. And she believed you. She wanted to believe. No one wants to think their spouse is a thief. I leaned back on the bench, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. So Sabrina wasn't the instigator. She was just covering for her husband, protecting the family as best she could. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I'm tired of the lies, Pierce answered simply. And because Jeanette shouldn't have to suffer for my mistakes. She really wants to go to this competition, crying every night since Sabrina told her a definitive no. You could give the consent without Sabrina, I suggested. One parent's signature would suffice. Pierce shook his head. I can't go against my wife in this matter. It would ruin our marriage, and it's already on the rocks. Then help me convince her, I said. There must be a way. Pierce thought for a moment. There is something that might sway her, but it would require you to make a concession. What kind of concession? Refuse to change the will, Pierce said. So leave everything the way it was before. Sabrina is very upset about this, though she won't admit it. She considers it a permanent breakup. I frown. I can't trust her with the inheritance. Not after everything that's happened. It doesn't have to be her, Pierce suggested. You could set up a second trust with Sabrina as one of the trustees. It would be a gesture of goodwill on your part. A sign that you still consider her part of the family. It was an unexpected idea. I hadn't thought of it that way. And you think it would have an effect on her? I can't promise, Pierce answered honestly. But it would give me an argument. I could say that you compromise and we should too. I considered his words. There was a risk, but perhaps it really was a path to reconciliation. Not a complete one. I doubted that after everything that had happened, Sabrina and I would ever get back on track. But enough so that Jeanette wouldn't be caught between two fires. I'll think about it, I said, and I'll talk to my lawyer about the possibility of a second trust. Thank you. Pierce looked relieved. I really want Jeanette to go to that pageant. And I'm sorry for what I did, Hector. It was wrong. She needs to save face in this situation. What about my money? Should I just forget about stealing it? No, of course not. But you've already set up a trust for Jeanette, so her future is protected. And the rest of it. Maybe you should see it as a price for peace in the family, for Jeanette's ability to develop her talent without hindrance. Perhaps, I agreed. I'll speak to Drayton tomorrow. When I went to bed that night, my thoughts were in turmoil. I was still angry with Sabrina, but not as much. I saw now that she too was in some way a victim of her husband's weakness and her own pride. And Jeanette was more important than all these resentments and disagreements. Her talent, her future, her happiness, that's what really mattered. And if I have to compromise with Sabrina to do that, I will. Because there can be no winners in this war, only losers. And I didn't want Jeanette to be one of them. When the doorbell rang, I didn't expect anyone except Mabel with another batch of home-cooked food. But there was Jeanette. Her hair was disheveled, her cheeks flushed as if she'd run all the way, a cello case in her hands. Jeanette, I exclaimed, looking over her shoulder. Ah, Ruin, do your parents know you're here? No, she slipped into the house. I have an extra music lesson today. Officially, I'm still there. I closed the door and led my granddaughter into the living room. I should have scolded her for deceiving her parents, but I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Grandpa, she set the case down and turned to me. Dad confessed to everything. I froze. To what exactly? That he forged the signature, that he was in debt, that Mom was trying to protect the family, Jeanette said quickly, words bouncing over each other. They had a big fight last night. They thought I was asleep, but I heard everything. I sighed and lowered myself into the chair. Sit down, baby. We need to talk. She sat across from me, tense as a string. Is it true? She asked. What Daddy said? Yes. I didn't see the point in lying. Your father confessed to me a few days ago. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to put you between my parents and me, I answered. You were already in a difficult situation. Jeanette leaned back on the couch, her face pensive. You know, she said after a pause, I almost feel better about it. Knowing that Mom didn't steal from me directly, she was just protecting Daddy. The wisdom in her words surprised me. You don't need to worry about that, she frowned. Grandfather, stop treating me like a child. This is my future. I have a right to know. She was right, of course. I tried to shield her from the complexities of the adult world for too long, but those complexities were already affecting her directly. Okay, I agreed. Your father suggested a compromise. I said, what if they don't keep their word? What if, even after your concessions, Mom won't let me go? I thought about that too, but I had to take the risk. Then we'll find another way, I said firmly. I promised you that you would go to the contest, and I will keep my promise. Jeanette looked at me for a long time, then nodded and sat down again. Grandfather, I have made up my mind. When I turn 18, I will move in with you, if you will accept me. I was touched by her words, but I had to be realistic. A lot can change in 4 years, little girl. Maybe you'll be studying in another city, or even in another country. I don't care, she said stubbornly. This is my home, a real home, not the one where Mom and Dad fight and lie to each other all the time. I didn't know what to say. The thought of Jeanette living with me warmed my heart, but I didn't want to make promises I couldn't keep. Who knows if I'll still be alive in 4 years? Let's focus on the contest first, I suggested. We'll decide the future when the time comes. She nodded, but I could see the determination in her eyes. My granddaughter inherited Doris's stubbornness. How are your preparations going? I asked, changing the subject. Jeanette perked up. Good. Professor Myers says I'm making great progress. Would you like to hear it? Without waiting for an answer, she opened the case and took out a cello. I'd always marveled at how this frail-looking creature could handle an instrument almost as tall as she was. But when Jeanette began to play, all thoughts disappeared. There was only music. She was playing something complex, technically perfect, yet filled with deep feeling. Her fingers flew across the strings. The bow moved gently and passionately. I was no expert in classical music, but even I could tell that this performance was special. When she finished, I applauded, unable to put my admiration into words. It was incredible. Jeanette smiled, a light blush covering her cheeks. Part of the program for the competition, Bach Cello Suite No. 3. The professor says I'm making progress, but I still need to work on the third movement. It sounded perfect to me, I said honestly. She laughed. You're biased, Grandpa. Maybe I am, I agreed, but I know what I'm hearing. Jeanette carefully put the cello back in its case. I have to go, she said regretfully. Class ends in 20 minutes, and I have to get back to school before my mom gets here. I walked her to the door. Be careful, little girl. Don't tell your parents you were here. While we're trying to find a compromise, it's best not to provoke them. I understand, she hugged me. I love you, Grandpa. Love you too, Jeanette. After she left, I sat in silence for a long time, remembering the music and her words about moving. Part of me wanted it more than anything. The other part realized it could only exacerbate the conflict. The next day, the letter arrived. An official envelope with the logo of the Vienna Academy of Music. I opened it with trepidation. Inside was a letter in English. Dear Mr. Fielding, it read, we are pleased to inform you that Jeanette Kent has received a provisional invitation to our summer school for young talent, based on a recommendation from Professor Myers and video recordings of her performances. A final decision will be made based on the results of her participation in the international competition for young musicians to be held in Vienna. My heart jumped. This was more than just a competition. This was a chance for a serious musical education at one of the best academies in the world. I immediately called Pierce at work. Fortunately, he answered himself. The letter from the Vienna Academy has arrived, I said without preamble. Jeanette had been provisionally accepted into their summer school. What? He sounded genuinely surprised. That's amazing. You have to convince Sabrina, I insisted. This isn't just a contest. It could determine Jeanette's entire future. I'll do my best, he promised. By the way, did you talk to the lawyer about our agreement? Yes, I answered. He has prepared the documents. I'll sign them tomorrow. Good, Pierce sounded relieved. I'll tell Sabrina. That should help. 3 days later, when I was beginning to lose hope, the phone rang. Jeanette was yelling into the receiver so loud I had to pull it away from my ear. Grandpa, Mom has agreed. I'm going to Vienna. I felt the tension of the last few weeks let go of me. That's wonderful, baby. She even apologized, Jeanette continued. She said she was wrong about my music, that she was proud of me and supportive. It was unexpected. Sabrina is not the kind of person who admits mistakes easily. I'm glad, I said sincerely. I'm very glad. We're going as a family, Jeanette added. Mom, Dad, and me. Mom said she would take a vacation from work. I smiled. That was a good sign. Maybe Sabrina had finally realized how important music was to her daughter. Grandpa, Jeanette's voice suddenly became serious. They want to come to you. Tonight. To talk. I tensed. About what? I'm not sure, but they seem, different. My mom even cried yesterday when she thought I couldn't see. It wasn't like Sabrina at all. Something had happened. Something I didn't know about. Okay, I said. I'll wait for them. That evening, at 7 sharp, all 3 of them arrived. Jeanette hugged me first, then stepped back, letting her parents pass. Sabrina looked unusually demure. Pierce looked nervous. We made our way into the living room. Jeanette went straight to the piano, an old instrument Doris had once played. She began to play something quietly, giving us space to talk. Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Dad, Sabrina began. Her voice sounded unsure, which was completely unlike her. I'm always happy to see my family, I replied neutrally. Pierce coughed. Hector, we came to apologize, both of us, for everything we've done. I glanced at Sabrina, expecting to see outrage, or at least disagreement, but she nodded. Yes, Dad, I was wrong. We were both wrong. What we did with Jeanette's money, it's unforgivable. Why the sudden change? And I asked bluntly. Sabrina and Pierce looked at each other. Then Pierce said, I lost my job 3 days ago. That's what it is. I'm sorry, I said, and it was the truth. Despite everything that had happened, I didn't want to hurt them. They found out about my debts, Pierce continued, about how I'd been covering them up, the embezzlement. Yea, I could go to trial. Sabrina took his hand. We'll tell Jeanette everything, the whole truth, about the money, about the debts. She deserves to know. She already knows, I said quietly. What? Sabrina looked at me in surprise. Nishram, she heard you talking to her a few days ago and came to see me. Sabrina closed her eyes. God, she must hate us. No, I shook my head. She's too wise to hate, and she loves you no matter what. You're her parents. Pierce looked like he was about to cry. We don't deserve her. Maybe, I agreed. But she deserves you, deserves parents who will support her dreams and her talent. Sabrina nodded, her eyes moist. I promise, Daddy. I swear I'll never stand in the way of her music again. I see now how talented she is, how important it is to her. What's going to happen with the charges? I asked, looking at Pierce. I'll plead guilty to everything, he said. Probably get probation if I'm lucky, and of course, I'll have to pay back all the money. Now that's going to be difficult, I said. We'll sell the house, Sabrina said firmly. We'll move into an apartment. We'll save money. It'll take time, but we'll pay back every cent to Jeanette. I looked at them, my daughter and her husband, broken but seemingly genuinely remorseful, and felt some of my anger dissolve. I appreciate your honesty, I said, and your decision to support Jeanette in her music. Samedimon. Daddy, Sabrina pitched forward, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it, not for my sake, but for Jeanette's. She must not grow up in a family torn apart by conflict. I wondered, can I forgive them? After everything that's happened? I don't know. But for Jeanette's sake, I could at least try to find a way to reconcile. It would take time, I said honestly. Trust once broken is not easy to rebuild, but I'm willing to try. For Jeanette's sake, the relief on their faces was almost palpable. Thank you, Sabrina whispered. Thank you, Daddy. Jeanette, noticing that our conversation was coming to an end, stopped playing and came over to us. Is everything all right? She asked, looking from her parents to me. Everything will be fine, I answered. We're working on it. She smiled, and there was so much hope in her smile that it made my heart ache. Despite all the trials she had endured, my granddaughter was optimistic and had faith in the future. Jeanette, I took her hand. I received a letter from the Vienna Academy. You have been provisionally accepted to their summer school." Her eyes widened. "Really? But how did they find out about me?" "Professor Myers sent them recordings of your performances. They're impressed." Jeanette turned to her parents. "Did you hear that? The Vienna Academy. Cherie, we're proud of you, honey," Sabrina said, and I could see she meant it. Very proud. In that moment, I realized that, despite all her mistakes, Sabrina loved her daughter. And maybe if she could see how important music is to Jeanette, she could truly be the supportive mother my granddaughter so desperately needs. The following weeks were spent preparing for the competition. I helped with paperwork, buying tickets, and making hotel reservations. Sabrina and Pierce, true to their word, actively participated in everything. They even started attending classical music concerts to better understand the world in which their daughter lived. Shortly before leaving, Sabrina came to see me alone. We were sitting on the veranda watching the sunset, a simple family scene that seemed impossible a month ago. "Daddy," she began, "there's something I have to say." I turned to her. "I'm listening." "I've been jealous all my life. The way Mom loved you, the way you loved her. You had a special bond that I never felt with you." I was stunned by her words. "Sabrina, I've always loved you. You are my daughter." "I know," she nodded. "But this was different. And I think I see the same connection between you and Jeanette. Something special. Something you and I never had." I didn't know what to say. She was right in a way. I did have a special bond with Jeanette, based on a shared love of music, a similarity of character. "I don't want to be jealous anymore," Sabrina continued. "I want to be happy for Jeanette, that she has you, that you have this connection." "Thank you," I said quietly, touched by her words. "And I want to find my way to my daughter," she added, "her own special connection, not trying to copy yours." "You will find it," I said confidently. "You're her mother. You already have something special connecting you." Sabrina smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "I was never the perfect daughter, was I?" "And I've never been the perfect father," I replied. "We all make mistakes, Sabrina. The important thing is that we learn from them." She nodded. "So many great musicians have performed on this stage. I feel like I'm going to let them all down." "You won't let anyone down," I said confidently. "Just play like you play for me, with your heart." She nodded, took a deep breath, and headed toward the stage. I took a seat in the audience next to Sabrina and Pierce. We exchanged nervous smiles. At this point, united by our shared excitement for Jeanette. When she played, the hall fell silent. The first notes of Bach, pure and clear, filled the space. Then the music began to grow, deeper, more complex. Jeanette played with her eyes closed, completely immersed in the melody. Her fingers moved with confidence, the bow flying over the strings, producing sounds that seemed to penetrate her very soul. I looked at Sabrina. She was sitting there, breathless, eyes wide open. I saw in them the same admiration I felt myself. Pride in my daughter, the realization of her exceptional talent. When Jeanette finished playing, the hall burst into applause. She stood up, bowed, her face glowing with happiness and relief. At that moment, I realized that all our conflicts, all our grudges and disagreements were insignificant compared to this moment of triumph. With the joy on Jeanette's face, with the music that united us all. True family is not defined by blood ties, but by love and support. My family was far from perfect. We made mistakes, we hurt each other. But in that moment, looking at my granddaughter receiving the applause of an international audience, I knew we were on the right path. The path to healing, to understanding, to real family. Jeanette looked out into the audience, found me with her eyes and smiled a special smile, one that was meant just for me. And I smiled back, feeling my heart overflow with pride and love.